Today on the Bumper to Bumper Roadmap, we might come up with a fact or fiction,
Hey,
quite possibly.
are we on the air already, Dave?
We are.
How did that happen so fast? All of a sudden, we're in here chatting.
Of course, we're taking your phone calls. And, I had someone call me today, or this week, in their motorhome. Their grandson accidentally put some bleach in the fuel tank versus in the, the water tank to try and clean it out. And so they got that cleared out, and he said, I want a tune-up because it's running rough. And so, it's not very often that we get asked for tune-ups anymore, Matt, is it? Do you still get asked for tune-ups?
Well, especially on motorhomes with bleach in the gas
I know,
tank.
right?
So, yeah, that doesn't happen very often. But, we still do, believe it or not. We get that question, and it's usually because someone feels a symptom, and it's different. You'll get younger drivers. They don't really say, I need a tune-up. It's kind of maybe older, and I'm saying maybe over 30 maybe. I'm 48, so. But people are used to doing a tune-up on your car. When it ran bad, you tuned it up. Back when, you could. We looked up the definition of tuning or tune-up, and I think it was to optimize, make an adjustment to optimize performance or something like that. But it typically refers to an engine or a musical instrument.
Well, take your 1985 Chevy Suburban, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can go for a tune-up. They're probably going to get a cap and rotor and plug wires and spark plugs, and someone's going to tweak and adjust the carburetor maybe if it's not running quite right. Mm-hmm. So that's a tune-up, but that's such a long time ago.
Yeah, and so in a tune-up, basically, you take any of your older cars and let's say we had computers in the cars in the 70s, but in mid-80s, like you said, and older, you had a lot of components that wore out, and most of the adjustments were still done manually. We had to turn the distributor to adjust the timing. We had to turn screws on the carburetor to adjust the idle or the choke or whatever it may be. But now the computer tunes the car every second you're driving it. So the computer is the one turning the screws constantly, so to speak. But we don't have as many moving parts. So, tune-up was replaced, like you said. The spark plugs wore out, and then the wires were maybe one set of wires for every two sets of spark plugs, and a distributor cap and rotor at maybe 30 or even 60,000 miles, and a fuel filter. And then you did that, and then you made the adjustments. But now the parts, we don't even have
distributors. Distributors disappeared in the late 80s.
And the term tune-up, let's just use it for the that generic sense like Coke or Pepsi in place of cola. Used to be you did a tune-up at 30,000 miles. And you had cap, rotor, wires, plugs, filters, that kind of stuff, and some adjustments. Then spark plugs started getting better. Ignition systems need more fire, more electricity, so they went to 60,000 miles. Because the spark plugs were better. They started to be platinum instead of just copper core or whatever. But then we got rid of the distributors. You still had spark plug wires, but you had just maybe one coil or three coils for the whole setup. Now we've evolved to
one coil on every single spark plug.
Now we've evolved to the double iridium, super palladium,
polonium carbide,
micro fine wire, super duper Bosch spark plug with 105,000 miles, and now you just have a coil in every cylinder. So there's much less parts, much more happening with the computer. So these things now are tuning is really cleaning, tweaking, ensuring things are properly performing.
So let me give you an example of a car. Let's take a Honda with a V6 with 100,000 miles on it. What kind of things are you going to do to tune that car up?
Well, that car is not going to have any spark plug wires, so we'll have spark plugs that are going to wear out and be worn. I think the interval to change those spark plugs is actually 105,000, I believe, coincidentally enough.
Okay, so let's wait to 105,000.
It's 100,000. So we're going to replace the spark plugs. You may or may not even, it used to be, I'll back up again, filters, fluids, plugs.
Okay.
That's what it was. But we don't have very many filters. We don't have a fuel filter on a lot of cars now. They're built in.
The past.
Fluids are extending, but we're sticking with tune-ups. So we're going to replace the spark plugs. But what we need to do is clean up the engine. We need to get all the soot and the gook and the stuff we need to allow that engine to breathe. And we're also going to, as this engine gets dirty, that's what the computer is adjusting for. So we want to clean out the throttle body. That's where all the air enters the engine. Well, that air is dirty. It is going through an air filter, but it still has crankcase ventilation in it, fine mist of oil, and that's building up and making things dirty. we want to clean the fuel injection system, clean the fuel injectors out, and not so much that we're cleaning the injectors. We're using the injectors to deliver the cleaner that then gets in the cylinders and removes the carbon buildup and such. So there's those type of things that are tune-ups. A valve adjustment, I think, is the number one overlooked maintenance item there is. And
why do you think that is? I mean, I have my suspicion.
I could say 2 or 3 different things. One, the manufacturers. The manufacturers say you adjust them when they're loose. Well, when they're loose, they make noise. You hear this clattering noise. But when they're tight, they don't make noise. But they make the car run bad. So the specifications the manufacturers have laid off. I think they're giving misguided information on that.
Do you think a lot of people in some of these shops don't know how to adjust valves?
They're
not gonna tell you about it, folks, if they don't know how to do it. So that's
Exactly.
I mean, I want to make a point of that. Oh, I went down there, I had my Honda CR-V checked out, and they told me everything was great. Did they tell you to adjust the valves? No, they didn't. Well, that's CR-V's just a valve chewer.
Yeah, old Johnny that went to tech school and got out last week can't really do that.
No.
Especially when there's a line of 4 more cars that they want to screw spark plugs into really quick and easy. It holds up production. So, and I think some of it's the consumer too. You take a V6 Honda; those are some of the worst ones. They have a common failure with a lean condition, and the valves are out of whack. They're expensive.
Yes.
You've got to pull the intake manifold, and that's when you start getting in a tune-up, and people go, "Oh my God, $600, $800, $1,000." Well, the way these engines and stuff are packed in now, there's economies of scale. You have to take the intake manifold off to replace the spark plugs. Well,
That's when you pop the valve cover off and adjust the valve.
Yeah, exactly. And you're waiting until 105,000 miles because that's when they're due. Well, what are you going to, then you don't want to adjust the valves today, so you wait. You wait to do it. Well, then you repeat all that labor again. Or you do it when the valve cover gaskets are leaking, because they're going to start leaking. It's got over 100,000. So all these things kind of tie together at that 100,000 mile range too.
Well, I think that's too when you have these. I think of the life cycle of a car, and the life cycle of the car, and what you're going to do with it. And to me, the modern car, if you take reasonable care of it, it's going to go 200,000 miles for you
easily.
So at 100,000 miles, they're going to ask you for some money. Pretty much the first 100,000 miles is just brakes, filters, fluids. That's, tires and that kind of thing. But, you get up there between 80,000 and 120,000 miles. We're going to start to talk about valve adjustments. We're starting to talk about motor mounts. We're starting to talk about timing belts. So sometimes I feel like that's when people bail on their car. They're like, oh, the car's been perfect up till now, and now you're telling me it needs all this stuff. Should I just get another car? Well, last time I checked, they're not giving these cars away. So, I mean, sometimes I think people bail before they get the benefit of what the investment they made to buy this car.
Well, yeah, and you can enjoy your investment longer too. 100,000 miles is going to ask you for when I say a little bit of money, it's still a lot of money.
Oh yeah. I mean, you may put in that range between 80 and 120. You may put $3,000 to $5,000 in the car and repair bills. If you put a radiator in there and a timing belt and a valve adjustment.
But we got to put a little asterisk there. It all depends what you spend at 105,000. Depends on how well you behaved
at 60
for the first period of time. The cars that didn't get the oil changed and didn't get the coolant topped off. Those are the ones that have seeping radiators.
Yep.
They're the ones that have hard gaskets and carbon buildup and crap, and they've just been rode hard and put away. You know what I mean? It's like the old ox out in the field. They just work like an ox, and they don't. But you wonder why the damn thing limps at the end of 5 years.
Oh yeah,
you know? You got to take care of it.
Are you that guy that puts off buying a battery? Your battery's weak, and you start the car and it goes, barely starts up. Batteries are one of those things. You hear us talk about them because most cars you see on the side of the road, it may be a battery. The thing you see stuck in the parking lot, it's a battery issue. I get cars in my shop because someone's got an dingy old battery and it's leaking battery acid down on the transmission. I have a transmission shop, so guess what I find all the time? Bad transmissions as a result of bad batteries. So I'm telling you, the one place you don't want to skimp is on a battery. So when we do batteries at our shop, the first thing we do is check them when they come in the door. And if it needs a battery, we put an interstate battery in there. And we've been doing that for years because it's a battery that you can find coast to coast.